Welcome everyone. Again, good morning, and hopefully it's a beautiful day there too. It seems beautiful here too. Okay, so we'll start with a short breathing exercise, mindful breathing exercise to quiet our mind, to bring our mind in moment present. And then we can try to generate good intentions. For example, life in samsara is not easy, full of challenge, problem, suffering. And therefore, in order to deal with those challenges, difficulties, problems, suffering, we need to learn all the skills, practice, so we can deal with those problems more positively, more healthy way, more positively. In this lodge of mind training practice, a very powerful practice to transform those problems, obstacles, suffering, pain into something virtuous, positive, and path. But to be able to transform them, we need to practice over the time, not just hearing or listening, but really putting into the practice every day over the long time. And for that, we need to be reminded of the practice. And for that purpose, that we are here to listen, reflect, contemplate. And may us here coming together, engage in the discussion practice. May all this become cause and condition achieve our highest potential, fully awakened state. and be greatest benefit to all sentient beings. Okay. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create to listen to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient. Sangye chedan soge sonam la changyo padu dane tato nage choshe vibe sonam dola kende sangye toba. Sangye chedan soge sonam la changyo padu dane nage choshe vibe sonam dola kende sangye toba. Sangye chedan soge sonam changyo nage choshe vibe sonam dola kende sangye toba. So we have been, going through 37 verses of mind training, or the 37 verses of the Bodhisattva practice of the mind training by Bodhisattva Tome Sampo. And we went through where he started with the common practice, the preliminary practice or common practice with the middle scope, small scope and middle scope, and then engage in the actual practice of a higher scope, Bodhisattva practice, engage in the Bodhicitta mind, and having engaged in the Bodhisattvas, Bodhicitta mind, then how to transform obstacles and problem and suffering into the path, how to use those challenges, suffering and obstacles for the improvement of our spiritual growth, to progress in our spiritual path. So we're in that section, and within that section, with the verse number 12, we went through that when if someone steals and robs of you of something, how to transform that circumstances into your path by engaging in the practice. And then now when verse number 13, in other situations, where if someone try to cut off your head, of course it's quite gross, but if someone try to hurt you, physically, hurt you, even when you have not done slightest thing wrong, if you do something wrong, at least you can understand why someone is trying to hit you. If you made some mistake and if you do something wrong, maybe there is some reasons, whether that is correct or not. But even when you don't have any, when you have not made any mistake or even smallest wrong, and in such situation, when someone out of any delusion trying to physically hurt you, harm you, even cut off your head, of of course, for our normal response with upset and angry, and then, respond with anger. And but here he's saying when we engage in both sort of practice, in the mind training, then instead of responding with such anger, and instead we try to act out of compassion. Out of compassion, take all his misdeed upon yourself. That is the practice of Bodhisattvas. Out of compassion, by understanding, that person is engaged in such actions because he or she must be suffering. If someone is not suffering, they will not hurt and harm others. Most likely, when we are not feeling well ourselves and when we're disturbed because our own pain, suffering, then that is when we become more aggressive. And that is when our mind is not peaceful, calm, when our mind is disturbed by something, that means, when your mind is disturbed, then, there must be. And with that understanding, that person is acting in that way, in that harmful way, because he or she must be suffering a lot, And through that understanding their own pain and suffering, then we try to, instead of anger, we try to cultivate, compassion. And out of that compassion, also by understanding that person's, by that such action, he or she is creating a lot of negative karma. As a consequence, he or she will experience so much pain in the suffering in the future. Not only they are suffering now, but also because of such actions, they will be experiencing so much suffering in the future. So with that understanding of their pain and suffering, then instead of getting upset and angry, try to cultivate compassion with that understanding, and with that, then, then you try to the practice of Thubten, taking, may all their suffering and cause of suffering wrapping over myself, and may all my happiness and all my virtues and goodness, may it wrapping on them, and if you can do visualization or taking and giving, you can also use the visualization as well for that practice. So that is where, out of compassion, take all his misdeeds upon myself, instead of trying to hurt them back for hurting us, that will be how normal, ordinary response will be, because they hurt me, so therefore you respond with trying to hurt them, harm them. But here, when you engage in both a path or practice, then, instead of that, try to respond with compassion. Out of compassion, instead of trying to harm them, we try to help them by taking their suffering and cause of suffering on ourselves, and giving them our happiness and cause of our happiness. And such is this is the practice of Bodhisattvas. It's not easy, these practices, but definitely if we can apply them, then, it's incredible. Even just the concept itself, even just the idea itself is so powerful, And then to actually, if it's not just the concept and the idea, but if you are able to apply, and if we are able to do that, even on a very small level, it will make huge difference. It will make huge difference in our spiritual growth, in our spiritual path. And next one is another instant, when someone try to criticize talk bad about you, So even if someone broadcasts all kind of unpleasant remarks, again, either they are jealous with you, whether they are, due to attachment, jealousy, due to arrogance, due to ignorance, anger, whatever, out of any of those delusions and internal actions, then they try to broadcast or talk about you, all kind of unpleasant remarks about you, trying to about you through 3,000 words. So not just only with you, but in front of everyone, So, again, because if someone said bad things about you, about yourself, to yourself, it is not so bad. But when you talk about someone's bad in front of a lot of people, it is very embarrassing, it is very humiliating. You make someone look very small, very bad in the eyes of everyone, and so it's much more hurtful, it's much more painful, and it's much more harder to accept, and such, and yeah. So that is why. So when such happen, again, our ordinary response, our ordinary reactions will be hurt, by such speech, such actions, such behavior, and that will disturb our mind, agitate our mind, and that will give rise to anger, sense of feeling to kind of, take the revenge, or to try to say also others that, just as they have broadcast your unpleasant remarks, also then you want to also, broadcast all their shortcomings, all their weakness, all their problems, and also you do this, also you do that, also you are this and that, and so such that will be our ordinary way of responding. That is very ordinary. But again, here, when you engage in the Bodhisattva practice, on the Bodhisattva path, so then here, instead of responding that way, ordinary way, here is in return with loving kind mind, instead of anger, loving mind. Instead of talking bad qualities about that person, speak of his and her good qualities, and that is the practice of the Bodhisattvas, By cultivating anger, it doesn't help you, it doesn't help others, it doesn't help anyone. Instead, you are able to cultivate the mind of loving kindness. It helps you, it helps others, it helps everyone. And therefore, why try to create more suffering to yourself? Why try to create more suffering to others? By such anger, it always hurt and harm yourself and others. It only brings more suffering. So therefore, instead of engaging in certain thought and attitude and action that bring more suffering to everyone, why not try to engage and respond where it brings more peace and happiness for oneself and others, in terms of attitude, in terms of actions. And here the action, the speech, And so in terms of the attitude, instead of anger, we try to cultivate loving kindness, by understanding, that sentient beings, even though he or she might have broadcast, unpleasant remark about me, but like so many times in the past, as a best friend, as a close family members, as a parent, as a mothers, loving mothers. They have done so much for us, so much for us. If you take all that, this unpleasant remark is nothing compared to how much they have done good thing for us. With that kind of understanding, then we try to focus more on how their kindness and how much they have done, instead of focusing on just small one event of that unpleasant remark at the moment. Through that, then we try to cultivate loving kindness mind. And then through that, as a way of repaying the kindness of their kindness in the past, then we try to, speak of their good qualities, their good qualities. And such is the Bodhisattva practice. And when someone speak your, bad qualities of you, then if you speak back or return bad quality of them, it agitates both of them more and more. It makes both of them more and more angry. And that will go, worse and worse. And it makes things worse and worse. Instead, we don't need to add more fire to the fire itself. The fire is already started, but you don't need to fuel more, give more gas to it, because it's going to burn both of you, both people. After if we adding more and more gas, then notice speech, then we will become physically trying to hit each others. And again, if we add more and more gas, then there can come to a point where people have no hesitation of taking life. It doesn't start with that. It starts with small things, small argument, small disagreement. But then we started to add more gas, with that kind of attitude and that kind of certain behavior, and then that becomes worse and worse. So therefore, we try to cool the fire by not adding the fuel and gas. And, when someone speaks back about you, and when you actually start to speak good about them sincerely with loving kindness, they might be very surprised. Whatever that was boiling in their mind would subside. It might not happen to everyone immediately, but it will have for some people, it can have a direct effect. And some people, it might not have direct immediately, but after some time, they will start to think, even I try to be not so good for that person, but that person was, trying to be nice, and instead of getting upset and talking bad about me, started talking good up. It will have an impact on that person's mind with the time, and at least we don't add the gas there, and then also using that to develop more loving kindness mind instead of anger. Geshe, who composed the 8 verses of mind training, which is one of the first mind training texts written by Tibetan masters. Among the Tibetan masters, this story, of him being criticized by others, and for no fault of him, for his compassions, his incredible compassions, but not to understanding that because we always, there is always a lot of ignorance. And sometimes we make a judgment without knowing the situation, without knowing really, just from the outside, The story goes, Geshe Langri was teachings, at his monastery, and suddenly one lady came with a child and then left the child to him and said, take care of your child. And she left, And then everyone thought, oh, he's not a monk. He has a child. He has a relationship and he has a child. And so that message got around, and then everyone started rumors and all kind of, and everyone started to talk bad about him, And then Geshe Langri Thamba, he just took the child, under his care, and then it is said, whenever Geshe Langri Thamba hears that there are whether individual or group, there was other monastery nunneries where they was talking bad about him. When you hear that, he will usually send an offering to them, make offering to them, make an offering, sponsoring tea, bread or something in the monasteries. That was his response. That's a true Bodhisattva. That is true someone who practices Lojong. True mind training. Instead of upset and angry, he responds with loving kindness, compassion, and generosity. And then later, what happened was that then after some time, the mother came to take the child and said, give me my child, and they took, And then later the mom explained why, that it seems the mother had a child in the past, and every time the child died, didn't survive. So then when they went and asked someone who checks or does a definition that, and they told, next time when you have a child, you should take it and to one of the high lamas or teachers, monk, and then leave them there, and that's what she did, so and then she explained that she didn't, do it properly at the very beginning, the way she did it, but that was, and so she took it and then child, and so that was the why she did that. And yeah, I think there are a lot of stories like that. Even in monastery, we have certain children who were sent to monastery because, like their parents, they lost a lot of children, and then one of the high lama or someone told them, next time you have to put them in the monastery, maybe then they will survive because of that karma, positive karma. And then, once they were in monastery, and then some others who has a lot of illness and problem in their life, and they try all they didn't get cured. And then they were asked them or advised to send to the monastery, and then they came to the monastery, and the problem they used to have just disappeared, because I think there is some change in their karma, being through the change of the karma, So anyway, so that was and then next one, verse number 15. Though someone might deride and speak bad words, out of, again, out of jealousy, ignorance, anger, out of arrogance, who deride and speak bad words, say bad things, criticize and so forth about you in a public gathering, looking on him as a spiritual teacher, bow to him with respect. This is the practice of Bodhisattvas. So again, and if it is said to yourself, it's hurtful but less. If you said in a group of 10 people, it becomes more hurtful, and it's more difficult to. It becomes more painful, more difficult, because you become ashamed, embarrassed, humiliated, whatever. And if it is told in 100 people, 1,000 people, bigger gathering, it becomes more difficult for most people, So even in such, if someone does that, again, instead of getting upset and angry, which normally that we will do, upset and angry, and then reacting or respond with that anger. Here he said, try to see it something as, that person's as like your spiritual teacher, guru, because of that person saying that, maybe we are able to notice our own shortcomings. Sometimes we are unable to notice ourselves, just like looking in the mirror. That is what they always say, Dharma should be like the mirror, through the Dharma practice, then we try to identify our own shortcomings, our own faults, our own, so through that, then we can improve, so that we can work on and improve our shortcoming, our weakness, our mistake, It's just like something problem with your face, spoiling or something radish or something, you don't see yourself, and when you look in the mirror, then you see that, Yeah, recently I had that. I don't feel much, but like one day I was looking in the mirror in the restroom when I went to the restroom. One of my eyes were almost closing, very small. And I thought, of course, my eyes are very small to begin with, So I thought, what happened, and then it's swollen, So, and it was just allergy reactions, And so again, that mirror helped me to understand what was happening there, And so it helped, and then it helped me to kind of talk with one of the doctor, and the doctor looking at it, and then, suggesting something. And so when you see that through that mirror of that, then when you see whatever problem, then you try to find solution to that, to fix that. Same way, the Dharma should be like a mirror, as always all the teaching says. It's like, when you hear, then you say, oh, I can see I'm there, that is how I respond. So, when someone does that, that is how I get upset and angry, and I respond with anger and upset, So that then you see our own shortcoming through the mirror of that. And so similarly, that person's is kind of evaluating where your practice is. When someone criticizes you, speak back about you, put you down, deride you, how do you feel? And how do you respond? Do you respond? Do you feel like just like ordinary people? Or do you feel differently? Or do you respond differently? If we are still feeling same way that we used to feel before we met the Dharma, and you are responding the same way before we met the Dharma, then that means we haven't practiced much. We're still there. We are still there. We haven't really made much progress. But you notice, even you are feeling hurt, but not as hurt as you used to feel. Even you are a little bit upset, but not so strongly as you used to be. And before, maybe we might be immediately respond back, say something bad for them, just as they say bad. Instead, you decided to keep it quiet because it's not going to help. No. That means your response, and so that means that you have maybe made little progress. Even we cannot feel compassion, great about, but at least not to have that strong negative feeling that you used to feel, and that you don't respond so negatively as you. So that in that way, that person's actions really help us to see where we are, in terms of our practice. So it helps us to evaluate where we are now and where we need to improve, where we need to improve, and where how much more practice we need to do. So from that perspective, then you see, if that person is like a teacher. The teachers are that. What does a teacher help? Teacher teach and help them to evaluate the students, and then they say, you are good at this one, but you are not so good at that. You should do more homework on this. You should get more help on this. You are doing good at mathematics, but you are not doing good at the language. Or you are doing good at the language, you are not doing good at math, or you are good at this, or you can improve a little further here on science, whatever. And so it helps, it helps the students to understand how they are doing and where they need to improve, where they need to increase, where they need to work more on. Similarly, this is what this person is doing, from that perspective, then it's like the best teachers, and so just as we have respect for teachers, so also we try to develop respect for that persons, because that person's officially not a teacher, but is doing the job of the teachers to evaluate and to help us to see where we are and where we need to improve and develop and practice more. So when you look from that, then, instead of being upset and angry, then you might appreciate, he or she is helping me to understand and evaluate where my practice is, where I am. And from that, then you try to cultivate respect instead of anger, and that is a practice of the Bodhisattvas. That is a practice of Bodhisattvas. Also, it is said in the teachings, the best teachers are those, who really hits you on the heart, your ego, your, hit on your heart in terms of pointing your shortcoming, your weakness. If the teacher is always nice, you are doing such a great, you are such a, then you slowly you might think, I'm doing great, when even you are not doing great, and you feel, I don't need to improve so much. I'm not a bad. I'm a great practitioner. I'm doing so great. But it are those, who really hit at your heart, your ego, and then you begin to understand how much I need to work on, how strong ego I have, how strong, self-centeredness I have, how strong, delusional pride I have, how strong anger I have, all of that, how strong attachment I have, all of that. And because of that, then when we identify our own shortcoming, our own fault, then that's where we can improve, make progress. First is to identify those, recognize that, Once you recognize that, otherwise, even if we have faults, we are not aware we have faults, even though we are, not making progress, we are not aware we are not making progress, even though we have strong egoistic mind, sometimes we are not aware that we have that strong. Sometimes even we have angers, sometimes we are not aware we have that like that. And so in that sense, this person is kind of, pointing to that. And from, again, that perspective, then it is, true spiritual teacher or the guru. And with that understanding, trying to develop strong respect and bowing with the respect. And then 16. Even if a person for whom you have cared like your own child regard you as enemy, cherish him especially like a mother does her child who is stricken by sickness. This is the practice of Bodhisattvas. This is similar like in Ed versus Mind training in Geshe Tamba. I think it's the verse number 6. To whom I have benefited much and have a great hope. And even they turn against me and mistreat me. May I see them as my spiritual guru. May I be able to see them as my spiritual guru. So that one verse here, 2 verses, 15 and 16, it seems to be a little bit like that. Looking as a spiritual teachers and to someone you have cared so much. So again, if we have not cared someone so much, like your own child, and you have given so much, even they are not nice to you, you might not be so upset. You might not be so hurt and upset, But to someone you treat like your own child, you have given so much, you have sacrificed so much, you did so much for them, and then they turn against you. They become your enemy, and they mistreat you. It's very hurtful, extremely hurtful. It's much more difficult to let it go. It's much more difficult to not get upset and angry. In such cases, if you discuss with your friend, family, or others, most likely most people will say you have a right to be angry. That is how people will feel, for how much you have done, and for them to turn against you, become enemy and turn against you and try to mistreat and harm you or hurt you. Anyone will, more or less, most people will say, you have a right to be angry and you have a right to act with anger and like that, But again, that's not the way from the Bodhisattva point of view or practice point of view, even in such, even when they mistreat you, try to hurt you, try to harm you, still not allowing the anger, hatred, resentment, grudges to arise. Instead, trying to keep the love and compassion that you had before, continue to that, and not to lose that love and compassion, just like by understanding. With a child, if there's a child which the mother cherish, love, care all the time, very much, maybe even more than their life sometimes, and they have done everything to upbring the child, for the best of the child. They put their life for that. And in that case, even in such cases, when the child is being possessed by some kind of spirit, or maybe child have some medical issues, and where they have no control, some illness. Due to that, if the child try to hurt and harm the mother will not get upset and angry. Instead, the mother will still be more compassion, thinking more how to help the child to get cure of that illness. If it's been possessed by something, how to get rid of that energy that has been possessed, thereby acting in that way. Trying to find all the solution to get rid of that whatever energy that is being possessed and the child to act that way. They feel even more compassion to see the child suffering and acting that way because of being possessed. Or the child being suffering and acting that way because of this particular illness. And they will all think of, compassion, always thinking how to help the child to get cured from that illness. Trying to find, instead of anger and hatred, but instead more compassion, always thinking and trying to find solution, treatment, cure for that illness, instead of getting angry and upset. So here is saying same way, when someone responds outside, you try to see by seeing, as Aryadeva said in his 400 verses, just like the child being possessed by some other energies or being disturbed by some illness, same sentient beings are being disturbed by the illness of the delusions, possessed by the delusions. And because of being possessed by the delusion, another force, then they act in such way, harmful, hurtful, that way. Because they have been ill, they have been sick by the delusion. That's why they act that way. That's why they respond that way. That is how they act. So through that understanding, just like the mother will feel for that child instead of anger, but more compassion, also will try to feel more compassion and cherish more and have more compassion mind instead of anger by seeing. Just like someone being possessed by some kind of spirit and energy. When someone acts in that way, he or she is being possessed by the delusion in that moment. If he or she is not being possessed by the delusion, they will not engage in such harmful actions, hurtful actions. The very reason that they engage into that harmful actions, because in that moment, he or she is being possessed by the one of the afflictive emotions. In terms of illness, we talk about others, physical illness, due to something, I don't know, some chemical things in your brain or some other energy. That is, some people, cannot, they don't function like normal people, because there is something wrong in one of their chemical brain or some other things. Because same way, when someone is under the influence and control of the delusions, and when they have illness of that, in that moment, they cannot act normally. They become abnormal from who they are in that moment. And because in that moment, that person is under the illness of that particular emotion delusions. So just it's very important, it's very powerful to really compare, because normal we can, even when we know someone has certain illness, and when they act and respond certain way, which we might not agree with, because it seems a little bit kind of aggressive or whatever, still we understand, we feel for them, isn't it? We understand, we feel for them, because we know, they don't have total control because of that illness. That's why they are. Same way, if someone is being normally a nice person, but then sometimes they get possessed by something, and when they get possessed in that moment, then they can become aggressive. When you know that, then again, you don't have bad feelings or negative feelings. Instead, you might feel compassion for that. Same way, it's just that it's not physical, but it's emotional, delusion. Possessed by the delusions. If they are not being possessed by delusion, they will not do that. They will not act that way. They will not do that if they are not being possessed by the delusions. If they are not being ill by the delusion, they will not act that way. They will not do that. And so through that, again, then that understanding, we try to hear, as he said, then you try to cherish and feel more kindness, compassion, even more so, because you see they are sick, because they are ill, sick with those delusional mind. And because of that delusional mind, they don't know what they are doing in that moment. They are not even aware what they are doing sometimes in that moment. And if you apply with yourself, your own experience, it will be easy to understand. There are moments when the delusion is very strong. You do things, you say things that normally when you are not in that state, you will never say that. You will not do that. And later you say, I regret or whatever, you regret, you feel not good and all of that. But if you don't feel good, if you regret, why did you do that? Why did you do that? Because in that moment, we lost our mind. In that moment, we lost our mind. In that moment, whatever emotions, affecting emotion was too strong that you couldn't control it. That means, you didn't have the control, in that moment. So with same, when we try to look to others, and then through that understanding, then, we try to, cultivate more compassions. And that is the Bodhisattvas practice. Even equal or inferior persons disparage you out of pride, So again, someone you feel equal, someone you might feel someone less than you, maybe because of your education, maybe because of your physical appearance, maybe because of your wealth, maybe because of your status, for whatever reasons, different people feel they are more superior than someone else, they are better than someone else, based on all those different things, for some people because of their education, for some people because of their physical appearance, well-beings, for some people because of, their wealth, their reputation, their power, their status. Due to any of them, then there's a sense of pride and the sense of their, better than someone, or at least equal or better than someone. So out of such, pride, and due to any reason, and when someone disparages you, someone try to make you feel small, try to make you feel small, look you small, humiliate you, put you down, Of course, as ordinary beings, the other person gets hurt, you get hurt. It's a natural. So, when we get hurt, so because of that, then we get hurt. And when we get hurt, then, that disturb your minds, and then slowly, if you don't have strong practice, then, that lead to bad feeling, negative feelings, evil feelings, you start to think negative about that person, and you start to feel anger, resentment, whatever, that, and then in a lot of time, not only you feel that, then, you will respond, whether you say indirectly, whether you write them, you write bad about the other persons, then we try to put the other person down, make other person, again, small, either through directly, either through writing, or different actions, so again, whether it's through speech, thought, speech, and physical action and behavior, And so that is again very ordinary, normal way of responding, And in such, we have no respect for that person. You don't have respect for such person. Ordinary way, someone try to belittle you, put you down. You don't feel respect for that person. But here is saying that the Bodhisattvas should try to transform that, and instead of allowing to have those negative thoughts and negative reactions or response, instead try to cultivate positive thoughts, positive feelings, And how we do is here, place him as you would your spiritual teachers, with the respect and crown of your head. Instead, then, just as you would respect your teachers, spiritual teachers, and put on your crown the highest, because you have very high regard to them, because you have a very high respect, high regard to them. Same way here is saying, try to see that person like your own spiritual guru, try to hold highly, try to have high respect and regard him highly. And again, similarly, as we discussed before, seeing them as a real teachers, spiritual teachers. Normally, even in our education, normal educations, I think sometimes you have two types of teachers: theoretical teachers and practical teachers. Yeah. Theoretical teachers teach you in classrooms how to garden, how to cook, whatever different subjects, Then there is a practical teachers who take you to the kitchen and make you do, chopping and cooking and all the, or taking you to the garden and then, saying that now what you need to do, letting you do all of that. So there are two types of teachers: practical and theoretical. And then, and someone who really want to be a cook or gardener, you really learn from practical teacher and being that field itself, not just from the theory, but actually being in the field and actually doing it. That is where you can really get good at that, be expert in that. In the same way, our normal teachers is more like a theoretical teachers, how you should practice patience, how you should practice loving kindness, compassion, how you should forgive, different techniques, method, teachings, this which we have learned, a lot of them theoretically. And now this person is now taking you to the field and saying, okay, you have learned all of this, now do it. So in that, really taking to the field and making you practice now what you have learned, what you have studied. From that point of view, then this is a really practical spiritual guru, teacher. And through that, that is where you can really make progress. If someone is a serious practitioner, if they are really truly, committed, and if they really want to make progress, then that is where you can really progress, And from that point of view, then you appreciate, if we can really understand that, if we can really feel that, if we can really understand, then you will appreciate such actions of such person, the person and their actions. And then, and once you understand, you feel that, then of course you will have very high regard for that person. Then you will have very high regard for that person. You will have a, great respect for that person. And you will feel the kindness of that person for the growth of your spiritual practice, for the growth of your spiritual path. You will really appreciate and grateful for that person for contributing in your progress. That is why it is mentioned, of course, we are not in same level, or at least me, Adisha's level, or many others, but there are many Adishas, when Lama Adisha went in Tibet, he took a tea boy who used to make tea for him, and he's very annoying, all the time. His personality characteristic, and all the students in Tibet, you don't need him, we'll take care of you. He's always not doing right thing, annoying, and all these things, why did you bring him, you don't need to be, he doesn't need to be here, or he doesn't need to be around. We will take care of you. And Adisha, no, he helped me with my practice. So Adisha purposefully took him with him, which makes a lot of obstacles or annoying and all of that. And because that really helped him his practice. Of course, I'm not in that position, so I will try to be in that, so I will try to avoid that. Instead of creating more negative karma by getting upset, angry, and then, all of that. But like Adishas, someone like who had that ability to really apply those practices, then of course, it's better. It's better, and it gives you more and more opportunity to practice, more and more opportunity to progress more quickly, and to the path, So again, so anyway, so that, and also there's a story of, the 7 Dalai Lama, there was one cabinet in one of the government official. His name was Ngawang something, and again he was very annoying. He has sense of arrogant sense of superiority, and directly, indirectly, somehow you try to put His Holiness Seventh Dalai Lama down, somehow look him down, put him down, but still His Holiness keep him in the staff, in the cabin, in that, and treat him with great kindness and compassion. And such is the practitioners, true, like real practitioners, and that was written by another great teachers who wrote a praise to seven Dalai Lamas, mentioning of that, even though that person was, trying to put His Holiness down and annoying and all of that, but still Dalai Lama, he could get rid of him, he could have fired from that staff cabin, but he kept him. Not only he kept him, he treated him with great compassion and kindness. And so that is, what I mean with those examples, what it is possible. Sometimes when we look here, it seems this practice are not possible. Maybe for us it's difficult at this point, but if we keep on practicing, we can reach a point where this practice can be just as easy and normal and nothing difficult, just like for others practitioners, when they have, over the time when they practice, they found that, just like as I give. And sometimes I wonder that is the case, sometimes some of the lamas, they have an attendant or people around them, not necessarily very nice people, not necessarily very nice people. And sometimes you wonder why they have such attendant or someone there. They could choose. There are so many they can have. There are so many others people who are so kind, compassionate, very loving, very caring, who know how to treat others well and all of that. Why don't they keep that? Why they keep? And sometimes I wonder, maybe that is probably just like the Adisha and the seven Dalai Lama, maybe they keep those people to help them, remind them, and help them in their practice, or to train them, maybe because they need more training. I don't know, but you do notice, and then you do wonder. Sometimes you do wonder, but it could be just like Adisha, or it could be just like seven Dalai Lamas, And also, as it is mentioned in His Holiness Dalai Lama's mentions, he used to do that practice, and he find very helpful. He says, when someone kind of, look down on you, out of their pride, arrogant, when someone try to look down on you, someone try to treat you as you are less, as you are, basically putting you down, looking you down, making you, smaller, whatever, when someone does that, he said, also at the very beginning, he's talking about early age when he was younger, and I'm sure there are a lot of officials who does that because he was young. He didn't have as experience to run the government. He was still young. He grew up in the monasteries, and so he doesn't have same experience like some of them. And when he was still young, I'm sure that there are officials, the running of the governments, who might have treated him that way. He didn't mention exactly which stages of his life and what, but he did mention when people treat him that, and of course, in those times, he felt hurt and kind of mind was a little bit disturbed. And then sometimes he said he used to do practice, Then in those situations when his mind is hurt and disturbed by that such action, he said, he would just try to practice what Geshe Thambas in one of the elders, with whom he with whoever I am, I will always try to look myself lowest of all, and then look the others supreme and cherish them, And so he remembered that, and then he tried to practice, and then he said he tried to see the other person who look good, and holding them on your crown, your head, and then, looking yourself most lower of everyone, lower than that person, and then, trying to see the positive quality of that person's, there are certain positive quality that person has, maybe you might not have, certain skill that person has, you don't have, certain other qualities, skills, qualities, whatever form of skills, whatever form of qualities that other person have, you don't have. From that perspective, then you try to look, oh, you are more supreme, you are better than me, I'm less than you. And through that, he said, with that, then it really helped his mind to be more peaceful and calm over the time. And, so again, as it is said, if we practice that, seeing ourselves lords of all and seeing others as more supreme, then we will not be so easily hurt by when people treat you in that way, when they, and so that is similar, here. And that was a great practice that, there was a story of Domdemba. Domdemba was, again, main disciple of Adisha, who founded the Kadamba traditions, started the first Kadamba monastery, even though he himself was not a monk. He was celibacy, but not a monk, And Domdemba, he was, after the Adisha, he was the second most respected master teachers, where all the other great teachers, teacher of all the teachers. And so, of course, he was invited and requested teaching at different places, And one time he was going to one village, because he was being requested and to come and visit and teaching. So he was very like normal, ordinary. He was going by himself without entourage, Sometimes, a lot of time when you have big, you try to have many entourage, just to show that you are bigger, or special, that you have all. If you go by yourself, it seems like very, nothing special. But if you go with 5-6 people who are very respectful and carrying your things and doing all these kind of things, then people might think, oh, this monks or lama, or this should be a big special and big one. It is very easy to deceive people. One time, we play a Frank. I think it was in Varanasi. We went for one of his teachings, and then we were going to go for a pilgrimage, and we were sitting, we have hired a car, and then one of our friend Geshe was in the front seat, and then one of our friend, another Geshe, says, let's play a prank. And so there are a lot of Tibetans coming, so he opened the door of the Geshe who's in front and started to bow down and asking for blessings. Then all the Tibetans came and asking for blessings. And of course, Geshe in the front got a very kind of, embarrassed or something, uncomfortable. But that is just one example, just to give you one example. So anyway, I don't know why I get distracted from the Domdamba. And then Domdamba was going by himself. He didn't have his attendant. He didn't have people around him. He was just going by himself. And then on the road, he met someone, I think he was almost like drunk or a little bit drunk. And he was also going on the same way. And so he thought, oh, this is a very kind of, ordinary, simple, no one, nothing special. He doesn't look nothing special. He doesn't act like nothing special. So he told, can you carry my bag? So, and Domdamba, yes, without any hesitation, without anything, yes, I will carry. And he even put his shoes on carrying the shoes as well. Domdamba, no problem, happily carried it. And they passed through one kind of path, climbing and up, and then they came to close to a village and monasteries. And then there were a lot of monks on the both sides, greeting. And then the person with the Domdamba said, who are they greeting for? They all are staying greeting for someone. Who are they greeting for? And Domdamba said, maybe for me, probably. And the other person was so embarrassed, he ran away, because he feels so embarrassed for such a high lama, this high teacher, that he didn't treat it respectfully. Of course, he didn't know, and asking to carry. So such is the Domdambas, always holding himself lowest of all, not making feel that he was special or he was better or he was high, something high, always. So that is the practice. That is the Katamba practice. That is the mind training practice, and so that is similar here. And also in terms of criticism and praise, because we went through a few verses on that. Again, as Shantideva said in his teachings, we shouldn't be so excited, too happy, or attached to praise. When someone praise you, someone talk good about you, if someone is saying good about you, there are some other who are criticizing you. Doesn't mean anything, On the other hand, if someone criticizes you, you don't have to be so down and so depressed or feel bad, because if someone criticizing, there's someone who praise you. There's always someone who praise you, and there's always someone who criticize you. There's always someone who agree with you. There is always someone who disagree with you. It's not like the whole world, everyone is disagreeing with you. Neither whole world, everyone is agreeing with you in anything. So by accepting, understanding and accepting that, we try to make sure that we are not affected. Our mind is not affected because someone prays, then we start to think I'm special. becoming proud, thinking, oh, I must be very special because someone say you, oh, you are great in that. Also, you shouldn't feel so bad just because someone criticizes you and make you feel nothing or small or bad or whatever, because again, there are other people who feel differently. Not everyone feels that way. And to that, basically, is not allowing your mind to be disturbed either by arrogance and pride or feeling depressed or down, and just learning to be more equanimity with that. Just learning the equanimity of both criticism and both praise. And also, if someone praise you now, it doesn't mean they might criticize you next moment. Or someone might criticize you now, and maybe after 1 hour, they might praise you. So even with one person, doesn't mean much. One moment they feel good about you. You say, oh, you are such a great this and that. And next moment they feel bad about you. They say you are such a, rat, this and that. And especially, I think, when people have a relationship, I think probably you notice more of that, in one moment, they feel like you are the king or queen, and next moment, they make you feel like you are the worst person in the world, so not to get too our mind affected by all those things. So again, that's another practice in relation to dealing with praise and criticism. Yeah. Okay, any questions?
Karen, you have a question?
Yeah, the story of the High Lama carrying the man's baggage and shoes, and practicing, humbleness really. Where did the tradition of prostration come from?
Well, the frustrations come from even during the Buddha's time. If you read the sutras, at the very beginning of sutras, most of the sutras, they go and for alms beggings, and then once they have the lunch, the meals, and then, Buddhas stay somewhere cleaning, and then after that, the disciples gather around them, and then they make 3 circumambulation, and then bow down, prostration, and then request, ask something, and then that's where the sutra starts. They raise certain questions or request something, and then Buddha's teach. So it come from Buddha's time. It might have been even before Buddha's time. So yeah. So a lot of time people think it is a Tibetan thing. It's not. Actually, in India now, they even not only the teachers, even normally the children's. No, you don't have to be even children's. When you meet someone who's senior than you, like it doesn't have to be your father, like someone who is age of your father, grandparent or grandmother, they go and touch their feet like this. And that is bowing down to the laws of that, taking your feet, which laws of that person's, to your crown. And that is showing respect, bowing down, asking for the blessings. And so they do even for ordinary people. they do even for ordinary people. And of course, when it's teachers, and it's not only teachers, spiritual teacher, then of course, then they do even more. But like even in ordinarily, culturally, that is a way of showing respect. That is a way of, yeah.
You see the touching of the feet in Africa a lot, but I was really referring more to the full body, you know, on the ground thing.
Yeah. It is also there in India. It's not like that. It wasn't that in. It come from India, from the Buddha's time too.
Okay.
Yeah. If there's question, I can take it one. Otherwise, we can have dedications. Then we can do the dedications, I guess. Gyawadi nyodo da lama sangye dokyo ne Gyowa chi kyang ma lu pa e sa la kwe pa sho chang ju sen cho en bo che ma ke pa na ke kyo che ke wa nyam ba me ba yang kong le kong du pe wa sho jide kam de pen de ma lu pa kong le chung we sam be yi she no ka dian chung me ten jin jia cho la so wa de so tu che lun du sho. Fearless teachers and assembly of the children of victorious ones, Sabhakas and Pradeka Buddhas, victorious Losam, Father and the Son, alone with the lineage master, all the object of refuge of infinite length, please bestow the virtues and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. Holding and spreading Muni's precious and complete teaching, through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparably venerable Guru, to you I make request. While starting single-pointedly for the sake of victorious one station, the sole gateway to which all benefit and happiness emerge, and for mother living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of blessing of the ocean of three jewels and the great wave of Bodhisattvas of the children of victorious one, may the smile of reincarnation swiftly beam in the glory for fortunate disciples. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for joining today. Thank you.
Thank you, Geshe.
Thank you. It's been a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you, Geshe.
Thank you.